For revenge, he turned his life into a tragedy. A 3-meter square basement became his only sanctuary. Yet, despite it all, Huey still strives to face life positively. He picks up a shirt that doesn't smell as bad, trying to force a smile, but he just can't do it. When a diligent, humble man's wife is turned into a pile of meat by a superhero, without even an apology, and instead, he is hunted down by the hero's teammates, what do you expect him to do? When he blew up the pursuing Translucent, only to have the enemy portray Translucent as a heroic martyr and launch a nationwide manhunt for him, what do you expect him to do? When his last hope, his companions, accused him, making him endure repeated scorn and ridicule, what do you expect him to do? He just wants to be an ordinary person, but the powerful Vought International is like a mountain. Unless this mountain is moved, he will never see the sunlight. Therefore, Huey secretly contacts Starlight, hoping to use her to collect clues about Compound V and expose Vought International's crimes to the world. But ever since Stan took over Vought International, the control over Compound V has become increasingly strict. Even Starlight can't get close to the core lab, let alone obtain a sample. Of course, Huey anticipated this situation. He managed to get hold of some information. A man nicknamed Gecko, a guinea pig in the lab, might be a breakthrough. When Nim found out Huey had contacted Starlight again, he scolded him harshly.
Fucking crazy!
Yeah, man!
Are you crazy?
We're careful, we use
doing?
We use burner phones.
Kid, you don't get it. They could have been following you. They could be watching us right now.
S fears are not unreasonable. If Vought International tapped Starlight's mobile phone, it would be the end of all of them, including Starlight of course. At this moment, an injured man interrupted their argument. He had an accident at the dock, and his bones were crushed. The boat belonged to Frenchie, so they couldn't avoid responsibility. They hurried to the dock, where tens of thousands of tons of cargo ship had overturned. They were dumbfounded at the sight. Fortunately, noticed a surveillance camera by the roadside. From the footage, they saw the ship being used for smuggling people into the country. A man stepped out of the cabin, and instead of following the line like the others, he got into an argument with the smugglers. He pushed a smuggler away with one palm and then used telekinesis to lift the ship and smash it into the smuggler before disappearing into the night. Kimiko seemed to know the identity of the superhuman. She wrote the word boy on paper and handed it, along with an origami found at the scene, to Frenchie. But Frenchie couldn't understand what Kimiko meant. Maybe only heaven knows what these people are up to. But with such a major incident, they are likely to be exposed. Their only option now is to seek shelter from Deputy Director Susan of the CIA and inform her about the super terrorists smuggling into the country. Susan suddenly started laughing after hearing this. She had been looking for the final piece of the puzzle to put everything together, and now she had found it.
Okay, so then what's the whole picture?
The whole picture? It's Vought. It's a coup from the inside.
Just as she finished speaking, Susan began to bleed from her nose. Then her head exploded, killing her instantly. Everyone was terrified and quickly got into the car to escape. Huey kept asking questions non-stop. Fortunately, their heads were still attached to their necks, and they made it back to the basement safely. Huey felt immensely guilty about Susan's death, but told him it wasn't his fault. Upon analysis, they realized that someone must have planted a bomb in Susan beforehand, set to detonate if she said something she shouldn't have. If it were a superhuman's doing, they would have been dead by now too. The mastermind behind it was obviously Vought International. Knowing that Vought had become so reckless, Huey immediately contacted Starlight, wanting her to abort the plan. He didn't want to lose another important person, but Starlight clearly had her own thoughts. Huey knew he couldn't argue with her and reluctantly hung up the phone. Just then, the guard at the door suddenly rolled down the stairs, and everyone tensed up, readying their guns. A man walked slowly towards the stairs. It wasn't until they saw his face that they lowered their guns, but Huey was very displeased with his arrival. Frenchie tried to persuade him, saying that times were different now and the team needed a real leader. Billy detonated the bomb without hesitation, smiling as he accepted death. After a loud explosion, Billy found himself unharmed on a grassy field. But this wasn't heaven. His enemy, Homelander, had saved him, keeping him alive just to humiliate him. Seeing the son that Homelander and his wife Becca had together, Billy felt nothing but humiliation and resentment. If even death had become a luxury, that was true despair. But when he saw the pleading look in Becca's eyes, Billy's fighting spirit reignited. He just couldn't understand why he woke up in a restaurant parking lot 3 hours later. Billy stumbled into the restaurant, and before he could forget, he quickly noted down all the details he had seen. At that moment, The restaurant TV was broadcasting his wanted notice. Billy knew he had dragged his teammates into the abyss and thought of a way to help them. With Colonel Grace's background, she could clear him and his teammates' names, and even find out Becca's whereabouts. But Grace didn't want to deal with this troublemaker and intended to turn Billy in, until Billy said he had a way to find Susan's killer and promised to capture the super terrorist. Grace agreed to his request. Billy's going to fight a good fight. Billy's return instantly gave them a backbone, but Huey found it hard to trust this traitor who had abandoned his companions. But what choice did he have? After all, only Billy could lead them out of this predicament now. They then follow Grace's address to the terrorists' hideout. Frenchie expertly picked the lock, and they split up to search the place. Kimiko rushed ahead. By the time the guard noticed her, it was too late. She lunged at him and swiftly decapitated him. The sight left Frenchie dumbfounded. Then, he noticed a double snake with sun emblem tattooed on the guard's chest. This was the terrorist organization that had killed Kimiko's parents and kidnapped her and her brother. Kimiko climbed onto the shelves, continuing her search. She finally found the stowaway from the surveillance footage. She leaped down, but instead of attacking, she embraced the stowaway tightly. It turned out he was her long-lost brother, Kenji. She excitedly communicated with him in sign language, expressing how much she had missed him. Frenchie then realized that the boy Kimiko had written about was her brother. Billy didn't care about their reunion. He raised his gun, aiming at Kenji. In the nick of time, Huey tackled Billy to the ground, which also alerted Kenji. Kenji turned and, with a push of his hands, sent the three of them flying with telekinesis. Just as they were getting up, a swarm of shelves came crashing towards them. Then, with a downward pull, Kenji brought the ceiling's steel beams raining down. Kimiko saw that continuing the fight would be fatal, so she quickly led her brother out. By the time the group got free, Kimiko and Kenji had vanished. They had finally located their target, but Huey messed it up. Angry Billy exploded on the spot. Intervened to calm him down.
You. Off. Rest you with me.
But to Billy's surprise, Frenchie and him remained unmoved. After all, Huey had risked his life to save them from the enemy, and Kimiko was one of their own.
I suppose you agree, don't you? Since your tongue is halfway up her ass.
Although Billy's mouth is not clean, he knows that he has a guilty conscience, and he finally tells the team what's in his heart.
And I need your help to do it.
Billy's words from the bottom of his heart made the team let go of their feelings, and they continued to look for Kimiko and Kenji. Kimiko and Kenji hadn't gone far. Kimiko felt deeply guilty towards her brother, having promised to protect him but failing to do so, and then being turned into a monster by that blue poison. She had also caused her brother to endure unimaginable pain.
It's a night.
She tried to persuade him to come back with her, but Kenji was consumed by hatred. Their village had been destroyed, and no one, young or old, had escaped the eyes that shot out lasers. Seeing Kenji getting more agitated, Kimiko realized he had been brainwashed. She wouldn't allow her brother to kill innocents, and she looked at Kenji with pleading eyes. Kenji struggled internally, but he couldn't grant her wish. With a powerful strike, he sent Kimiko flying and then ran in the opposite direction. Kimiko followed closely. Just as she was about to tackle him, Kenji suspended her in midair with his powers. Then, with a forceful gesture, Kenji hurled Kimiko straight into a residential building. Kenji didn't know how far he had run. He thought he had lost his sister, but to his surprise, Kimiko had already caught up. She leapt and tackled him, tightly choking him until he passed out. When Kenji lost consciousness, Billy and the others arrived just in time. They bound Kenji's hands and carried him into the van. As Huey closed the van door, Billy suddenly punched him. Huey, swallowing his pride and anger,
You come between me and my missus again, I'll fucking kill you.
Knew that delivering Kenji to Grace meant he could return to a normal life. Huey hadn't spoken a word since last night. Billy, realizing he had been too impulsive, apologized to Huey, but Huey wasn't having it. He punched Billy right away, and still unsatisfied, he continued to pummel him. Fortunately, stepped in to break up the fight. Just then, Billy received a call from Grace saying she had sent people to the shore to pick up Kenji. After that, Billy could rescue his wife, and the team could reunite with their families. Grace was worried Kimiko might rebel, but Billy assured her he would personally deal with Kimiko if she did. Billy had just hung up the phone when he saw Frenchie standing behind him.
It's just a figure of speech, mate.
Although things seemed to be improving, the bond between Billy and his team was on the verge of falling apart. In this situation, how could he possibly fight Homelander? Meanwhile, Homelander wasn't having an easy time either. Standing naked on a rooftop was Homelander, a man who did whatever he wanted. Despite his power, Homelander was just a child craving maternal love. He took a bottle of milk left by Madeline from the fridge, heating it with his laser eyes before drinking. He savored the taste of motherly love, not wanting to waste a drop. But before he could swallow, Ashley interrupted him. He wipes his mouth to hide his panic and asks what Ashley wants with him. Ashley mentioned that the superhero team was currently short-staffed. The Deep had been banished to the frontier after his scandal was exposed. A-Train was in a coma due to drug abuse. The Seven was now down to just 4 members and desperately needed new blood. To address this, she had scouted a new candidate. This person, nicknamed Blind Spot, was incredibly agile, with precise javelin skills and exceptional dagger assassination techniques. Though he had lost his sight, he gained super hearing akin to radar. Homelander praised Blind Spot's abilities. Seeing Homelander commend Blind Spot, Ashley was feeling quite pleased with herself, but she was celebrating too soon. How could the arrogant Homelander allow a handicapped person to be part of his team? Homelander then turned his wrath on Ashley, declaring that from now on, every decision within the company, big or small, must go through him. Ashley didn't dare utter a word and quickly nodded in agreement. Yet, despite Homelander's tyrannical ways, someone had the nerve to publicly confront him.
Your eyes are really f***ing blue up close.
Not wanting to ruin his public image, Homelander made an excuse to leave, but the woman, pushing her luck, insisted that Homelander greet her fans. This woman was Stormfront, the new member of the Seven, personally appointed by the company's president. Stan, Homelander, thinking of himself as the company's most important asset, was furious and went to confront Stan. He tried to threaten Stan by bringing up his soon-to-expire contract, but Homelander was wrong, facing the man who could easily turn people into dust. Stan remained unfazed. To Stan, Vought International was never a superhero company but a pharmaceutical conglomerate, and Homelander was just a successful product. Products can be replaced, but the compound's formula is the foundation of the company. However, Homelander had foolishly let Compound V get out. Stan warned Homelander that if he didn't behave, he wouldn't clean up his mess anymore. Homelander was extremely displeased with Stan's tone but didn't dare act out. He had no choice but to swallow his pride and leave. With a loud boom, Homelander arrived at Becca's house, seeking comfort from his son, Ryan. But Ryan showed no signs of having superpowers, which disappointed him somewhat. Then began Homelander's most outrageous parenting attempt. He gently tossed a baseball into the air, and it disappeared into the clouds. He then told Ryan to fly up and retrieve it. Ryan was puzzled. He couldn't fly. The most absurd part followed. Because Homelander could fly, he assumed his son could too, so he told Ryan to jump off the roof. Ryan looked down, puzzled again. His father wanted him to jump off a 6-meter-high roof. When Homelander heard his son call him Dad, he was very touched.
Dad, please. Please don't make me jump.
Then, seeing his son lying motionless on the ground, Homelander felt no pity. He was even a bit angry. He began to doubt if Ryan was truly his son. Becca was even more furious. She yelled at Homelander, asking if he had any humanity left. But Homelander coldly said it was only a 6-meter fall and told Ryan to get up by himself. Becca's desperate calls finally awakened Ryan. Watching her son being raised to be so weak made Homelander even angrier. He berated Becca harshly, suppressing her inner rage. Becca helped her son up and tried to go inside, but Homelander grabbed her wrist. If he had used even a bit more force, Becca's bones would have shattered. Unexpectedly, Ryan, eager to protect his mother, suddenly pushed Homelander away with a powerful shove. Seeing Ryan's eyes glowing red, Homelander wasn't angry but rather pleased.
Good boy. Just like me, Ryan.
No, I'm not like you. Go away!
Buddy, it's
Leave us alone!
Homelander watched his son's retreating figure, feeling a mix of emotions. Becca, too, was filled with unspoken pain. She knew Homelander was capable of anything and didn't dare confront him directly. Taking advantage of the time while dropping her son off at piano lessons, Becca drove to the secret lab Vought International had set up there. She pleaded with Jonah to honor their agreement and get rid of Homelander. Jonah didn't even see her. He simply informed Becca through the gatekeeper's phone that the company had decided to avoid conflicts with Homelander as much as possible. Jonah was powerless to help, leaving Becca to fend for herself. Feeling helpless, Becca hung up the phone. She just wanted her son to live a normal life. Homelander and Becca have completely different philosophies on parenting, and he says to Ryan,
You and me. and God's. Son, we can do anything we want.
Not wanting to become as arrogant as Homelander, Ryan asked him to leave. He was going to bed. As Homelander stepped out of the bedroom, he encountered Becca at the door.
You need to get the out of my house.
Meanwhile, Starlight's quest for revenge had made progress. Based on the information Huey provided, she had waited for days and finally spotted Gecko. Gecko, looking suspicious, followed a man into a rented apartment. Starlight initially thought they were about to engage in some shady deal, but she was utterly shocked when the man picked up a large machete and chopped at Gecko's arm.
Holy shit, thank you!
The man grew more and more excited as he continued chopping until he completely severed Gecko's arm. He even wanted to keep the arm as a trophy. However, right at that moment, Gecko's severed arm started regenerating at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turns out his superpower is the ability to rapidly heal from any injury, which is where his nickname Gecko comes from, and all of this was recorded by Starlight from outside the window. Superpowered individuals engaging in such dirty dealings would be in serious trouble if Vought International found out. Afterward, Starlight approached Gecko. Gecko is a lab rat for Vought International and has free access to the 67th floor laboratory. Starlight hoped he could help steal Compound V to expose Vought International's scandals. Seeing Gecko's refusal, she threatened him with the video. Reluctantly, Gecko had no choice but to agree, but before she could get the sample, Starlight had to put on a fake smile and attend the company's event. In public, she is Starlight, captivating everyone's attention with her charming costume, but in private, she remains Annie, passionately dedicated to upholding justice. Just when she thought things were about to go smoothly, A-Train suddenly rushed onto the set, startling Starlight. This guy had been in a coma for half a year, and he just had to wake up at this critical moment. If A-Train reported her collusion with Huey, their plan would be completely ruined. So, Starlight decided to test A-Train first. She asked if he remembered that she gave him CPR the night he had a heart attack. A-Train's response was even more surprising. He said he not only remembered that but also remembered Starlight helping her traitor boyfriend escape. Hearing this, Starlight's heart started pounding. It seemed she needed to be wary of A-Train. No matter how much she guarded against him, she still couldn't prevent what happened next. Just as Starlight got the Compound V from Gecko, A-Train showed up. A-Train asked what she had stuffed into her boot. Starlight hurriedly explained that her leg was just itchy. Obviously A-Train didn't believe her, and he searched Starlight's boots, but he didn't find anything. It turns out Starlight had already hidden the stuff in Stormfront's bag. After getting rid of A-Train, Starlight finds Stormfront and uses the opportunity to get close to the new superhero to get her stuff back. Starlight quickly returned to her room to contact the media, but then A-Train appeared like a gust of wind and took the bag out of Starlight's boot at the speed of light. A-Train calmly took out the Compound V. Now, there was no way to explain it away. A-Train was going to report her, but how could Starlight possibly surrender so easily? Thinking quickly, she threatened A-Train with the fact that he killed Popclaw, demanding that he give back the Compound V. A-Train thought Starlight was bluffing, even if he did kill her. So what? Who could prove it? But A-Train underestimated Starlight. Starlight had also seen Popclaw's autopsy report. 4 syringes were simultaneously inserted into her arm veins, one of which had shattered a bone. Only someone with A-Train's speed could have done it. Despite Vought International's best efforts to cover up the truth, if she leaked the information to the media, A-Train's reputation would be ruined. Feigning calm, A-Train said, "If you do that, I'll take you down with me." But Starlight didn't care because nothing mattered more to her than justice. A-Train, however, was different. He injected Compound V and killed his girlfriend Popclaw for fame and fortune. So, he could only watch helplessly as Starlight took the sample back from him, then turned and left without a word. The next day, Starlight appeared in the Seven's conference room with a smile on her face. On the surface, she was focused on the script the writers had prepared for them, but inside, she was anxiously waiting for the media to break the news. A-Train wasn't in good shape either. When Queen Maeve asked, he claimed he had partied too hard last night, but the truth was his heart still had issues. Just then, Ashley suddenly received a message. The smile that had just lit up her face vanished after she read it, and she rushed out of the conference room. Of course, only Starlight knew what had happened. Her plan had finally succeeded. Watching the major media outlets rush to denounce Vought International, Starlight couldn't help but laugh. A-Train came running when he heard the news. He knew all this was Starlight's doing, but Starlight remained calm under pressure. She even turned the tables, accusing A-Train of withholding information. If something happened to her, he'd be in trouble too. Starlight then told him that there were things more important than money.
You know the only people that say that are the people who grew up with money.
Once the report aired, Vought International faced its biggest PR crisis in history. The stock price plummeted by 20%, along with the support for the superheroes and the money in their pockets, because now everyone knew these superheroes were artificially created. Of course, their troubles were the source of the boys' happiness. Huey saw the report and immediately messaged Starlight to congratulate her. Hugged Huey excitedly. Frenchie couldn't resist giving him a kiss. The cabin was instantly filled with laughter and joy, except for Billy, whose face showed no emotion. Huey was upset with his attitude and asked him why he couldn't be a little happier and give him a compliment.
And even then I won't. I just won't do it.
Actually, what Billy meant was that he didn't want the team to get too happy too soon. They were still far from taking down Vought with such a small trick. Right now, the only way to truly clear their names was to hand over the kid in the cabin to Grace. Any slip-up would mean all their previous efforts were in vain. Unfortunately, their worst fears came true. On the surface, Kenji seemed well-behaved, reminiscing with his sister, but as soon as Kimiko left, he immediately began using the iron lock to rub against the tape, looking for an opportunity to escape. That's when Frenchie sneaks into the cabin with a drink and chips to try and impress Kenji. Frenchie knew Kenji could communicate with Kimiko using sign language, but he had never seen that kind of sign language before. Kenji told him that after their parents were killed, his sister stopped speaking, and they created that sign language themselves. Frenchie asked him to teach it to him. Frenchie got up reluctantly, leaving the drink on the cabinet before he left. Little did he know that this drink bottle would become Kenji's best tool for escape. With just one finger, Kenji easily made the drink float in midair. With a flick of his finger, the bottle was crushed into a sharp dagger. Now, he only needed to cut the tape to regain all his superpowers. However, what he didn't know was that without this escape attempt, he might have had a better outcome. At this moment, Billy and the others were in a tense standoff with the airborne police. Suddenly, the boat anchor burst through the water straight towards Billy. Fortunately, tackled him just in time, saving his life. Undoubtedly, it was Kenji who had escaped. Kimiko rushed forward to stop her brother, but she was a step too late. Kenji raised his hand, ready to kill Billy. Kimiko suddenly pinned him down, but unexpectedly, Kenji's power struck the helicopter in the air. The helicopter lost control and crashed into the water, becoming a heap of scrap metal. Knowing the chances of survival were slim, Huey still threw a life buoy into the sea. Although they managed to restrain Kenji again, this incident left them with no way out. If they didn't hand Kenji over to Grace soon, they were all done for. Grace sent a message saying the commotion they caused was too big, and she couldn't send anyone to help. They had to find a way out on their own, but everyone knew escaping this sea area wouldn't be easy. The helicopter crash was like the first domino falling, triggering a chain reaction. Vought International CEO Stan stared at Kenji's photo, lost in thought. He then issued a directive to the Seven. They must capture this person, dead or alive. Despite Homelander's resentment towards Stan, this matter concerned the reputation of the Seven. He decided to lead the team personally for the capture. Even the Deep saw an opportunity in this situation, knowing that the ocean was his battlefield. Meanwhile, Billy and were intently watching the approaching shoreline. A mere 1.6 nautical miles felt like an insurmountable distance for them. Suddenly, the yacht was struck with a violent impact. They had just regained their footing when another violent impact hit them, and it was then that they realized they were in serious trouble. A swarm of sharks was rapidly approaching. Billy immediately grabbed a machine gun and began firing at the water, but there were too many sharks, and the collisions grew more frequent, causing the yacht to lose power. Billy quickly went to check below deck, where water was pouring in. It was clear the yacht wouldn't make it to shore. Billy made a quick decision to abandon the yacht and switch to the lifeboat. They powered the lifeboat towards the shore, with the sharks relentlessly pursuing them. However, the worst was yet to come. Suddenly, a jet of water shot up from the surface. The real threat had arrived, a massive humpback whale, controlled by the Deep. The Deep could not only fight in the water but also control all sea creatures. The humpback whale reached the shore first, blocking their escape route. The Deep stood proudly, waiting for their surrender. Billy saw this and smiled evilly, since there was no way back. So he did not retreat. He turned on the horsepower to the maximum straight towards the humpback whale. Now it was the Deep's turn to panic, but he had no way to escape either. Amidst their screams, the speedboat shot forward like an arrow from a bow. With a dull thud, blood and flesh splattered everywhere as the humpback whale was eviscerated. The massive impact knocked the Deep to the ground, leaving him unconscious. Not long after, Billy was the first to wake up. The others soon crawled out from the whale's belly, but Huey was nowhere to be seen. Huey was still sitting in place, dazed. Billy knew Homelander would be arriving soon. He tried to get Huey to leave, but Huey refused. A series of traumatic events had pushed Huey to the brink of collapse. He'd rather wait here to be captured by Homelander than continue living in constant fear. Billy decided not to force Huey and ordered the team to retreat. However, didn't want to abandon Huey. Knew Huey too well. Huey might choose to die himself, but he'd never drag his friends down with him. Billy led the group into the spillway, hoping to use the complicated terrain to escape, but hope quickly turned to despair, as Homelander had already arrived with his team. After extracting information from the deep about Billy and the others' whereabouts, he ordered the rest to immediately search the flood channel. As for the deep, he can't return to the team yet. Ordinarily, searching the flood channel would be A-Train's specialty, but now he couldn't run for long without his heart racing and blood pressure spiking, forcing him to stop and rest. Despite multiple attempts, he couldn't manage it in front of Homelander. However, A-Train had to pretend everything was fine, claiming his lack of rehabilitation training post-hospital discharge was to blame. Due to A-Train's slow progress, the seven split up to search. Meanwhile, the lagging Huey sensed something was off behind him and quickly hid. Luckily, it was Starlight who found him. The near-broken Huey felt as if he'd seen his lifeline. Just as Huey was about to express his longing, Starlight suddenly attacked, blasting Huey several meters away with a light wave. Starlight had spotted the hidden Homelander and thought this would deceive him, but unfortunately, Homelander wasn't fooled. Homelander ordered Starlight to kill Huey to prove her loyalty. Billy and the others, hidden nearby, faced the same dilemma: risk everything to save their friend or ensure their own safety. When Starlight hesitated, Homelander threatened, "Either you kill him, or I kill both of you." Homelander's overwhelming presence made everyone hold their breath. Huey signaled for Starlight to do it. Tears welled in Starlight's eyes as they began to glow, illuminating Huey's face, where she saw a serene smile. But taking Huey's life would depend on whether Billy agreed. Homelander was surprised to see another fearless soul and taunted Billy, saying, "Your wife's breakfast was delicious." Suddenly, Kenji appeared and with a wave of his hand, shattered the concrete beneath Homelander. Just as Homelander was about to take off, large chunks of concrete fell from above, burying him in a deep pit, temporarily immobilizing him. Kimiko pleaded with Kenji not to leave, but Kenji had made up his mind and quickly fled. Kimiko followed close behind, with the others not daring to lag. Billy knew the concrete wouldn't hold Homelander for long and pulled Huey to retreat. Kimiko caught up with Kenji, using sign language to express her love for him. Her brother loved her too, but who would have expected Stormfront to burst in, unleashing lightning from her hands and sending them crashing through the walls into a residential building? It seemed unlikely the siblings would survive. Stormfront is like a god of killing. She doesn't care about the civilians around her. She struck down Kimiko with her left hand, then unleashed lightning with her right, sending Kenji flying until he crashed into another wall and fell to the ground. Seeing the civilian blocking the way, Stormfront raises his hand and slaps it. It's obvious he's not going to make it. Stormfront is not happy with the noise from the mother and son, and the room goes silent with a loud bang. Are superheroes allowed to take lives so casually? At this moment, Kenji was already too weak to resist. Seeing that Stormfront was about to take Kenji's life, Kimiko leaped in and slammed Stormfront against the wall repeatedly before throwing her far away. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the siblings quickly sprinted upstairs. However, that just now also completely angered Stormfront. Someone who blocked Stormfront's way. It's his bad luck. Wherever Stormfront passes through, no one is spared. The sound of explosions and screams are heard one after another. It becomes a hell on earth. In no time, the entire building was left in ruins by Stormfront's rampage. Just as the siblings reached the rooftop, they realized there was no way out. In desperation, Kenji leaped to the adjacent rooftop. However, when he turned back, his sister was nowhere to be seen. Kimiko had stayed behind to buy time for Kenji to escape, fully aware that she was no match for Stormfront but determined to fight alone. Kimiko loved her brother, and he loved her too. Kenji, risking everything, tackled Stormfront but was quickly subdued by her. Kimiko tried to get up, only to be struck by Stormfront's lightning, which blasted her away and left her unconscious. Seeing Kenji attempting to use his powers to resist, Stormfront brutally snapped his arms, ending his abilities. Even then, Stormfront didn't stop. She clamped her hands around Kenji's neck. When Kimiko woke up, it was too late. She witnessed her brother's murder, utterly powerless to do anything about it. At that moment, Homelander descended from the sky. He questioned why Stormfront didn't leave him the head. Kimiko looks at her brother's body from a distance. She can't even collect his body now, let alone take revenge. But the worst was yet to come. Vought International held a press conference, framing Kimiko's dead brother, Kenji, as a super terrorist who attacked the apartment building, causing 59 deaths. Stormfront was hailed as the superhero who saved everyone. Hatred rooted itself deep in Kimiko's heart. She mingled with the crowd, looking for a chance to strike at Stormfront. Though Kimiko knew the risks were high, thoughts of her brother's death left her with no other choice. Fortunately, Frenchie stopped her. When Kimiko turned back, Stormfront had already flown away and disappeared from sight. To lure out Stormfront, Kimiko became an assassin, targeting those who had once worked for Stormfront. At that moment, the gang leader had no idea death was imminent. Kimiko kicked him down, grabbed his ear, and tore off his face. The other two fared no better. Kimiko snapped one of their necks with a single move. The other kept shooting at Kimiko, but the bullets had no effect on her. Kimiko seized the gun and plunged it into his head. Frenchie, worried about Kimiko, followed her closely. Wherever Kimiko went, she left a trail of corpses. Frenchie couldn't bear to see the once innocent Kimiko turn into a killing machine, but Kimiko's heart was already filled with hatred. She pushed Frenchie away and said to him in sign language, "Stormfront killed my brother. He was the only one I cared about. Stay out of this." Frenchie left in anger. Kimiko continued to vent her hatred for Stormfront in her own way. However, Kimiko wasn't the only one who hated Stormfront. Homelander also had a grudge against her. Stormfront had stolen the spotlight that should have been his, further twisting his already warped personality. He descended from the sky into a house, where a woman's figure emerged from the darkness. The woman was Madeline. Madeline feeds him milk with her fingers and then makes Homelander lie on her lap. Homelander began to voice his recent frustrations. Madeline told him that he was the true leader of the Seven, and to reassert his authority, he needed to eliminate anyone who opposed him. As Homelander was plotting how to deal with his teammates, Madeline suddenly let out a strange cry and transformed into a man.